Hey guys, so today I'm going to be doing a analysis on T1 versus Gen.G inside of the KeSPA Cup played about 2 weeks ago. And so I do want to, before I actually start, I do want to give a quick announcement. Again, I'm sorry, I've been up for about 2 days straight. I haven't slept in 2 days because I've just been thinking about what to do with the channel. What do I have to do with League? What is my reasoning to play the game? What is my reasoning to coach the game? And so I've been just doing a lot of thinking in the past few days as to if I actually want to continue to do this. And so then I told myself, I think the right step for this channel and for me as a coach, as a player, as a positional coach, as whatever you want to call me, is to start propelling my channel towards assistance of pro teams, and then maybe I'll get picked up one day. We'll see. Who knows? Not really. I don't really care too much about that right now. I am just looking to try to post as much competitive content as possible. And so, again, I still want to pertain to the lower MMR players, the players that are watching, because obviously not all of us are pro players. I do want to still talk about, how to get to Diamond, or how to get to Master Tier, or how to get to, Grandmaster as like, how to get out of Platinum as Annie, or how to get out of Platinum or Gold as Annie, and how to climb high elo with Garen, and just, the basics of what my channel has essentially started off with essentially players just wanting to get better at the game. And so I'm still gonna provide content. I'm still gonna try to, make sure that I make content for you guys specifically for that. But a lot of my focus in this channel is going to be towards professional teams, professional players, and also it'll also be essentially teaching the game to the general public through the gameplay of a pro player. And so all you have to do is you just have to simply copy paste the stuff I talk about in your own games, and hopefully you'll find success as well. Again, I'm not actively coaching right now because I'm very much focused on my own solo queue. I do want to hit Challenger, and then on top of that, I am very focused on, making sure I provide as much content as possible. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get started. So this review is going to be T1. I think I've already addressed this. Again, I haven't slept for a while. I apologize if I repeat some things, but this video is it's going to be T1 versus Gen.G in the KeSPA Cup. This game was played about 2 weeks ago from now. And so let's go ahead and just, play it out. Again, a lot of these VOD reviews are going to be really in depth, but because I'm going to keep this first one really short, it's kind of a test VOD and a warm-up VOD for me because I don't really do these often. I'm going to simply, I'm gonna skip over draft. I'm not going to talk about draft today, and I will talk about draft the next video I do of it like this. And then I'm also going to just briefly talk about the jungle matchup. So looking up in top lane, SK's team doesn't actually have a very strong right side map, and the reason for this is because we have a laner that can influence the wave, Galio into Aatrox, and we also have a bot lane that can influence the wave against the opponent team, mainly because of the damage that MF provides against Samira early on inside of the game and the range she has. And so then Hecarim is able to find advantages inside of the right side jungle. Going up to top lane, we don't actually have the damage. We do actually end up also losing 2v2 as Tolia Renekton against Hecarim Ornn. And so we want to be aware of the fact that, hey, 2v2s might become very dangerous unless we have Galio R. And then obviously we have to be considerate of the fact that Aatrox is running Teleport. Other than that, another thing that we can go ahead and try to address here is we are playing blue side Ornn. Blue side Ornn is actually very good. It's better than red side Ornn in certain matchups, especially in this matchup. Red side Ornn is not very good against Renekton. Blue side Ornn is just better. And then on top of that, we also have red side bot lane, or red side bot lane, which is Samira and what's his name, Maokai. Again, red side bot laners are ADCs that do excel in scaling, and the reason for this is because junglers aren't able to find certain terrain advantages against this every other map, and so then it becomes a lot harder for blue side junglers to attack red side bot lanes. Mainly because of the fact that the map just doesn't, help them. And obviously there's exceptions, right? There's Nocturne, there's Talia, there's Rek'Sai, there's all these different champions that can still, evade those kinds of terrain disadvantages. However, they do exist, and so you do want to draft relative to color. You do want to draft relative to where the tempo is going to be in the early stages of the game. And then on top of that, you also want to be drafting relative to how these openings inside of the jungle help your composition and how they help against your composition to the enemy team, right? Because again, red side MF is still very good. MF doesn't actually have insane amounts of escapes, but MF also has very good lane pressure and can set up really good dives against blue side teams as a red side jungler, because the openings and the opportunities to attack blue side bot lane is a lot more. And on top of that, MF, for example, also is also able to have terrain scaling on the left side jungle, mainly because of the fact that this little arc here, she can still ult over, whereas some other ADCs aren't able to actually, you know, influence certain fights like that. And again, MF is just one example out of like 100, however many champions there are nowadays, right? There's just so many different champions, and every single champion has its own concept and its own strengths relative to the color, which again, it's not something you have to worry about in solo queue, but in organized play, in pro play especially, this is something that is really important. But anyways, I'm gonna stop talking about that, and I'll go over that, you know, eventually in the future. I know that a lot of that was very vague, a lot of that was very rushed, but again, I'm just going to be doing this video. I'm going to keep it as short as possible, and I'm going to try to just talk about the most basic concepts of pro play that I'm seeing right now, and then later into the months as I do this, it'll get more and more advanced, and it'll get more organized and structured. But anyways, it is Talia into Hecarim. They both opt to do a what do you call it, a opposite diagonal start, where they shouldn't meet on the right side jungle, or they shouldn't meet in the jungle for a 1v1, mainly because they're going to be ending up in opposite sides of the map. They both decide to start blue buff here, and they end up just clearing and you know, not really trying to gank anybody. And we see that the third wave is coming in, and again, we talked about wave advantages that what's his name, Galio can get. And so what Galio can actually do against Aatrox, again, because there is no force of fights, because both junglers are opting to start on opposite angles, what's going to end up happening is players, especially in bot lane and mid lane, are more inclined to possibly do cheater recalls. And cheater recalls is a term that's been widely used by a lot of content creators now who are doing educational stuff, and essentially it's just tempo advantages to gank, to dodge certain gank timings, and then have, you know, wave 4 or additional waves come into you for a better you know, for a better lane state into the future. And so champions that can actually do this would be Galio into Aatrox, mainly because of the fact that, you know, we were able to relative to the matchup, Galio can do that against Aatrox if Aatrox plays it in a certain way, and then Galio can just give up all of his HP, and he's able to do that comfortably, along with botlane, who can also possibly do that depending on how the lane is being played. Again, stuff like this isn't just staple. Comfortably they can do this is because both junglers ended up on the opposite sides of the map, and so there is no really issue to immediately pinch the opponent jungler in either sides of the quadrants. And so then, you know, junglers can simply just full clear. In addition, you can still cheat a recall even if there's going to be left side or right side aggression from both junglers, and that's because you can still like walk back to the wave as the fourth wave is arriving back into you, and you don't really lose any XP, and you can still respond for any scuttle crab fights. But stuff like this you do want to be aware of. Yeah, seems like Galio, so they both full clear and they take a recall, and now the game timer is 3:51, and essentially what both junglers want to do is they want to clear their jungle fastest way possible, meaning this camp will respawn for Hecarim, these camps will respawn, and for Talia, her right side camps will end up respawning. We can already see the timer coming through. So now immediately what Talia needs to do and Hecarim needs to do is they need to just immediately recall and go back to their quadrants. So what's happening is a very slow jungle clear right now. We also see that Galio opts to simply reset, and now Aatrox can't really shove in this next wave because the third wave is arriving. Galio is able to take a very good recall here. Unfortunately, is forced to push the next incoming wave. Can't really do that, sadly. Sorry, this is not the third wave. That is the... Let's see here, hold on. Let's watch this one more time. So this is the third wave. Sorry, so the wave I just mentioned now was the 6th wave. It was not the third wave. And so now Galio goes ahead and... Okay, recalls on the 6th wave. Aatrox also wants to take a recall, but he can't. And the fact that Aatrox is forced to stay inside of the lane actually allows Galio to retain a tempo advantage inside of the game. That's really big. And so now the next incoming wave isn't really as beneficial for Aatrox to recall on. And as you can see, he just ended up forcing out his TP, and now mid doesn't have TP, and so now even if a play ends up occurring in bot lane where this wave ends up bouncing back because of the lane state and Taliyah isn't on that side of the map and Galio has priority against Aatrox, Hecarim is coming down, a ward could be placed here for a very early teleport into a possible play down into bot lane, which will begin to again accelerate the quadrant that Hecarim wants to try to influence the most, which will be the right hand side of the lane. And so this can all be done because we see that the teleport ended up coming out in mid lane. And so again, this is just hey, it's Aatrox versus Galio. Aatrox had influence on the wave early on. He didn't actually cheater, which is absolutely fine, but he was able to get a recall off and was able to force Aatrox TP out while retaining his own, which is really good. And okay, so other than that, some other stuff ended up happening that I just totally skipped over. They recalled, both junglers end up resetting back onto their original sides where they started, which, you know, is quite the quite obvious play. And you see that it seems like Renekton messed up a little bit. As we can see, Renekton isn't, I think, able to crash the next incoming wave. Never mind, scratch that, he is, actually, so everyone's quite happy. And we see that now SKT's bot lane, or T1's bot lane, just needs to let the wave return into them without actually forcing anything. Here, Taliyah ends up checking Hecarim's Raptors out, ends up spotting them, and simply goes ahead and takes them. And it seems like Hecarim ended up wasting a little bit of time up there for really no reason. And we see that Taliyah is not on the left-hand side, and so then Taliyah must be on the right-hand side, and so now, unfortunately, it's too late for Hecarim or T1's team to actually respond, nor can they actually end up getting the freeze down into bot lane, because they know Hecarim isn't down there, and so then bot lane, or Gen.G's bot lane, is relatively comfortable just crashing in the wave and then getting a reset, and then the next wave, which is, again, a non-cannon wave, is about to respawn. And so it seems like Taliyah back on the left side, Hecarim is back on the right side. And I mean, game state is really basic, the game is really slow. There's not much happening. Dragon here is really good call, and the reason Dragon is a good call is because Hecarim knows that Taliyah is on the left hand side, because she just ended up taking her right side jungle, and she's obviously up there, she can't really be anywhere else, and so Dragon is really good, especially when we have priority in bot lane. And so stuff like this is really, really good for both teams. Or sorry, for T1's team. This gank is a little bit interesting. This is mostly to make sure that Taliyah isn't there. I mean, Galio just needs to shove the wave. I don't think this ever really becomes a kill anywhere. But I guess whatever. Yeah, this is okay. So they end up deciding to fight for the blue buff in top lane, and again, this is because, as we discussed, Ornn isn't going to have a very strong lane phase against Renekton, and it seems like Aatrox was able to simply come in and help, and Ornn did have to take a reset. So blue buff just goes ahead and is forfeited by T1's jungler, which is completely fine. And then again, now Taliyah is like, okay, well, right now I know that this guy Mowgli has 1-2 camps available. Mowgli knows that my Raptors will respawn soon, and he knows that my right side jungle is up. So Mowgli really only has one of two routes. He can just clear his jungle, which is route A. He can simply maybe go into my jungle, which is route B. And then maybe route C is he just goes like this. But like that's really weird because the wave is not in a good position. And it's ineffective because he ends up losing out on minions as well, like he loses his own camps. So realistically, Hecarim's most efficient route is really just route B, where he ends up invading and trading my blue buff because he has priority both in mid lane soon and bot lane. So because I know that route B is actually the route that Hecarim wants to take, I'm going to take a reset and I'm going to meet Hecarim on my right side jungle to make sure that I protect it. And that's why we see Maokai also getting down the wards, and making sure that there is there is some assistance there. I don't think that Maokai warded, actually. Did he? I don't really know. Okay, actually he doesn't need to. There's already vision there. But we see that Mowgli ends up running to the right side jungle. I don't entirely know what he's doing. Oh, he wants to fight for blue buff here. Okay, sure. This is quite obvious though. This is quite obvious that Hecarim wants to be here. right? They have a lot of priority in bot lane. I really think that I think this is Gen.G's fault, because they know that Mowgli really only has a number of options and a number of routes. Knowing that he ended up giving his left side jungle, and then he has options to do route B, as we discussed. Maokai should just be here because Samira is very safe, and it's not like Maokai can lose a little bit of XP and still be assisting, his jungler and Talia in this case, to possibly let her finish her blue buff and then move on to Gromp, and then actually Talia's route should be 1 into 2 into 3. And the reason it needs to be A into B into C is because by the time that bot lane has been pressed into into SK's bot lane, Talia needs to be on Gromp, because Gromp is the closest objective to where the action may end up happening. If Talia ended up doing a alternative route like A into B into C, this isn't going to be good, because by the time that bot lane is fighting, or if Hecarim ends up ganking, and if this next wave, not this wave, but the next wave isn't after this, isn't crashed in immediately, then Talia's in a very awkward spot, and then what ends up happening is she's then forced to just move up like this, and then maybe she can go like this depending on what happens, but that's really unlikely to do, because again, it's just inefficient. It's just the suboptimal route. But anyway, so seems like this route ends up not being discussed, and I think that this is Gen.G's fault, that Maokai isn't actually there, and there isn't much assistance. And although yes, I understand that, like we even see like Galio moving, like Galio TP comes out, and I think they acknowledge that Galio TP comes out. Oh no, they already know he's there before the Galio TP comes out. Okay, so they didn't actually realize it. That's completely fine. But Maokai should be there. Maokai should just be there. Samira is absolutely safe. It's not like Leona's gonna end up like diving, Samira with cleanse and flash, and it's just not possible, especially when she didn't have ultimate. She wasn't sick. She didn't actually have the resources to do that. And so this is just kind of unlucky. I would say. Well, it's just misplay, really. I mean, now at this point, Hecarim needs to just simply full clear his jungle. He can't really gank bot lane. It doesn't seem like this lane is looking very good. And then after golems, Hecarim can really do one of two routes. He really only has one of two routes. Yep, Scuttle here is really good. And again, Scuttle here is really good by Gen.G, because we know that there's prio. And then on top of that, we know Hecarim is not on that side of the map. So really, the only time that objectives are being taken in pro play, there is essentially two aspects inside of our little checklist that we want to, be aware of. It is lane priority, right? Lane priority, and then it's also jungle presence, I guess. So whatever. So jungle presence and lane priority. So we know where the jungler is at all times, and so we can start the objectives. And then on top of that, we have lane priority to support them. So if you have lane priority, that's great. Then you have jungle priority, that's good. You can do the objective. And so this is why we saw Hecarim a few minutes ago doing dragon, and again now we see Talia doing the Rift Herald, knowing that mid doesn't actually have priority, but top does. So absolutely fine to do it. And on top of that, it doesn't seem like Hecarim is on that side of the map, considering he can't really be, relative to what was happening in the invade, and the fact that Hecarim has still right side jungle to take. And so Talia taking top side is absolutely fine to do. And again, Talia just ends up running back to her left side, and then Hecarim is forced to recall, as we discussed. He's not going to go into Crab, and the reason he's not going to go into Crab is because if Aatrox has priority, which he does influence the wave right now because, he's autoing it, then Talia could move down and possibly take Hecarim's Gromps, which we don't want that to happen. And so now Hecarim just immediately recalls and then runs back to his left side to defend his camps. And then at the same time, this is where bot lane should just move up and try to assist them. Okay. So again, another rotation that is quite important for you guys to understand is this isn't actually happening in the game, but it will eventually happen, and this is stuff that, because it's educational content, I do want to just address it. If this wave ends up being locked, this guy should just move up and try to assist, because he knows that enemy jungle is topside, and he should just look to try to wait for Renekton to crash the wave, and so then he can then just walk back down or recall back down if he has the gold value. I'm not sure if he does or not. Probably doesn't. He's Maokai support. And it actually defends Talia's clear, so she can continue clearing, and then this gank becomes like a match gank. And this also gives time for Renekton to just crash the wave, and if a fight does occur, then we have numbers advantage on top side because Talia could be there. right? And so then you just want to path up. But if Renekton ends up crashing the wave, then Maokai just needs to move down and continue to play on standby, which is what he's doing now. So this is all completely fine. Again, this is a clear-cut example of slow gameplay. Both junglers are playing very, very slowly because they are farming junglers, right? Talia does want to make sure she's getting items and farming. Hecarim does also want to make sure he's doing the same. And if laners just continue to play lanes correctly relative to when the jungler will be there, then champions like Elise, champions like Olaf, champions like Rek'Sai, early game champions are going to continue to struggle inside of the jungle if laners continue to find opportunities to get these bounce backs and, you know, these lane states that actually do benefit them. And so again, if you're playing against an inexperienced team, I think that I really think that you need to have a certain draft to pick an early game jungler. But I do highly think that playing the more defensive angle of jungle and making sure that you're getting your camps and then not playing relative to if the opponent makes a mistake is just so much better style of jungling than, you know, anything, because you're always going to be a consistent factor inside of the competitive game, right? This is a little bit crazy, so I'm actually just going to talk about this quick dragon take and then we're going to end it off here. And this is probably a byproduct of having Rift Herald, right? Because we know that Talia ended up taking Rift Herald, so I think she ends up placing it here. Yeah, so she places Rift here and then they shove the wave in. So now T1 is forced to invest someone to you know, deal with that. And again, we talked about terrain advantage, right? Dragons are very easy to take from red side, and as you can see, immediately Gen.G just steals the dragon. T1 responds with the team fight, and then this team fight will decide the game for like the next, you know, 10-20 minutes, or if the team fight goes really poorly, it'll be essentially the end, right? Seems like they go for 2 for 2. Yeah, they go 2 for 2, and it ends up actually going more towards Gen.G's favor, mainly because of the fact that they ended up getting the dragon. Although again, we have to look at the composition. We have to talk about, you know, scaling. Does the dragon actually assist them in any way, right? Does the dragon assist them? Is the fight necessary to take? Are there more opportunities elsewhere to possibly respond to this dragon take, right? But like you have to ask yourself these things. And I mean, going back to the whole situation, I don't think that there is a way that this could be responded to. I mean, they start the dragon. It's not. I mean, maybe they go mid lane, but like going mid lane is kind of weird. Maybe you go mid, eat top, and then you can go try to dive top lane. But again, because we have MF, we have Leona, and we have Hecarim Galio, I think that fighting this is actually completely doable, and winning this is also doable. Just because of the team composition that T1 has, and so fighting this isn't actually the worst call. It's actually something that could provide a positive result, and so they end up taking the chance. And then the fight is just really decided by mechanics and skill. But they do end up going 2 for 2. But anyways, that's all I'm going to cover for now. Again, I haven't slept in a while, and this video is already really long. So I will continue to do videos like this more often. I'm probably going to do a video like this every other day. And it's going to get more and more advanced. It's going to get more and more in-depth as I do them. And then eventually I'll start talking about alternative plays and possible routes that the teams can actually do instead of, you know, what they're doing now, and how that could have provided a positive result or a negative result or whatever, right? But that is it for this video, and I will see you guys for the next one. Okay, bye.